Today I have Andy Schwartz with me of Crowley and Cummings, a very experienced real estate attorney who's going to talk to us about a little bit about what's going on with the real estate world and especially the real estate fraud and the things to look out for when you're buying your new home. So Andy, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, Jason. Glad to be here.
So I know the real estate market's really hot right now, and I did want to talk to you about a couple of things that we're seeing a lot of people buying a lot of properties sight unseen, and that you were saying that during our conversation earlier, that a lot of people kind of run into a lot of different types of fraud. One of it, essentially, they're not really buying from the homeowners because some elderly people are getting frauded out of their houses. What are the things that you look out for in terms of protecting your buyer from these situations?
Well, I would say, first of all, Jason, that I would be very, very cautious about buying a home without really doing a lot of due diligence. The first thing you should do is work with your own agent, a buyer's agent. Usually when somebody is selling property, it's really going to be the seller that's actually going to be paying the commission. Some people may say, well, I don't want to use a buyer's agent because I'd have to pay for them. And most of the time here in Massachusetts, that's not the case. There's a total commission amount that gets paid by the seller, and it'll get split between the seller's listing agent and the buyer's agent. So that's step one. Definitely work with a buyer's agent who knows the local market. If for some reason you can't travel to the property, maybe there's a COVID situation, maybe you're coming from another state, at least the agent can do a lot of that legwork for you and kind of check things out.
So the other thing I wanted to talk about, Andy, is how do I know that the homeowners are actually on board with selling it? Because a lot of times a buyer and a homeowner never meet, right? Because a lot of this transaction happens through other agents. And you were saying, especially where there's elderly folks now that are being taken advantage of and people forging their signatures. What if I'm buying a house that's not even on sale? Like, how do I kind of prevent myself and prevent people from falling into that trap?
Yeah, well, one of the things that the agent can do for you is check the records and see, are those people, number one, actually the owners of the property? It's a pretty easy thing you can do. Yeah, believe it or not, sometimes they're not. And in fact, if somebody's just a little bit computer savvy, they can do a little ground research themselves. Remember, in Massachusetts, all of the property records are public record. So every registry of deeds, which is by county in Massachusetts, every county has its own registry of deeds. They all have their own websites. You can check on something, what's called masslandrecords.com. And that's kind of the master website. And then it has links to all of the different counties. So you can go in and you can search for the owner's name. You could also check online with the assessors. Every town has their own assessor's database. It's a little easier sometimes if you're just searching by address. If you don't know the seller's name necessarily, you could go to the assessor's records for the city or town, plug in the property address, and it'll pop up and let you know at least who the owners of record are. So that's two other sources you can check for information.
So on that note, when it comes to like the public records, does it tell you, and because I have heard that in terms of plot plan, they may not be completely accurate. What if someone's plot that they're actually buying in reality is a lot smaller than what it's being listed? Because they always say, well, it's your responsibility to figure this out. Where do I go to figure out exactly how big that property is? Is that something that is listed online?
Yeah, that's true. There are a couple different ways you could do it. The only way to know for sure if you wanted to double check is to hire a surveyor. The surveyor would have to come out. But that being said, most cities and towns, either the tax collector's office or the town clerk, a lot of them will have plans on record that were filed when the house was built, or if it's, let's say it's a subdivision, when the developer subdivided the lot. So they should have pretty detailed and specific plans that folks can go down and check. Like everything else, though, if you're not sure exactly what you're looking at, that might be an issue. So, I'm a big proponent of hiring an expert, such as an agent or an attorney, can help you with that as well. It's always better, and I'm sure you've seen this across all fields, to maybe spend a little bit of money to get some expertise than try to do it yourself and screw it up.
Oh, of course. And I also tell people unless you're the first person to own that property, and even in that situation, always get title insurance. Like, it's just... Always get title insurance. And remember, people do ask me that. They say, well, it's a brand new house, or the house was only built 3 years ago. Why do I need title insurance? Right.
There are a lot of matters that really could be affecting the land, not just the house, but it's the land that the house sits on. So owner's title insurance is critical. You know, we go back and we check either 50 years or to the first place where we can find good title. You know, it does cost a little bit of money when you're buying property to get the extra owner's title insurance, but compared to the cost of hiring an attorney to file a lawsuit or defend against a property claim if it were to come up down the road, it's pennies on the dollar, really.
And it seems like you guys are a one-stop shop, so people don't have to go to 3 different attorneys to do all that, which why I love, you know, every time I send someone your way, because I know they don't have to call another lawyer, right? That's important for them because they have a lot going on. They got to try to move, school districts. The last thing they want to do is hire 3 different lawyers to do a closing.
Yeah, exactly. We do that all the time. We represent a buyer, and then we can also handle the closing on behalf of their lender. And then we do issue the title insurance. And like you said, one-stop shopping makes for a much smoother transaction, especially in this kind of chaotic real estate market that we find ourselves in now.
Exactly. So the other thing I want to talk to you about, obviously there's a lot of money that transacts hand during these huge house purchases. I mean, even if it's a small house, it's probably the biggest transaction that most people are going to make in their life. And it does seem like there's some wire fraud that goes on. What are the things what is happening out there in terms of that? And what are the things that you can do to prevent that?
Yeah, unfortunately, there is a lot of that. You know, when there's a lot of activity, there's always the bad guys looking to take advantage. One popular scam is that they monitor or are able to hack into real estate agents' emails or sometimes even attorneys' emails. So if they see something that shows that a real estate deal is happening, they can hack in, they can create their own email and make it look like they're sending it from the real estate agent or the attorney. And then what they'll do is they'll send bogus wiring instructions. Like if somebody needs to wire, their funds for the sale, for the purchase, they'll send the bogus wire instructions to the buyer, and the buyer will wire or have their bank wire a large amount of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it goes to the bad guys, and you'll probably never get it back. A lot of times they're overseas or they're so well hidden that it's impossible. So, the big thing really is that anytime anybody ever asks you to wire money, call, make sure that you actually speak to somebody at the office that you're sending it from. Obviously make sure you know who you're doing business with. Don't be hesitant to just wait and actually get verbal verification over the phone. Don't just, especially if it changes, if they say, send it to some account, and then all of a sudden you get an email that says, no, we changed, send it to this account instead. So you have to be just super, super careful.
So if they tell you to buy, $100,000 worth of Target gift cards, it's probably not the right email.
Probably not. I think that's safe to say.
But, kidding aside, I mean, that's what I really appreciate the clients that I send you, because your attention to detail. And even though I'm sure you're doing thousands of these a month, I mean, it seems like every person that have come back and say, oh, Andy treats me like I'm his only client, right? And that's really impressive, because these little things are the things that people kind of run into when they're like, where should I call it? And every time they call your office and every time they get you, and you're the person telling them like what to do. And that is a real big peace of mind. Like I said, this is the first time where they're probably making the biggest purchase of their lives, and they might not make another purchase like this ever again. So it's a scary time. It's an exciting time. And I think when it's exciting, it also puts people's minds kind of at ease, so they don't see these potential issues that you see, which I really appreciate every time that you do that. But Andy, so when should people be calling you? What are the other things that Crowley and Cummings can provide for people? Because I know you guys are obviously a big law firm with a lot of hats in the real estate world. Not a lot. We aren't selling insurance anytime soon or anything like that. But what are the other things that you guys can provide, and when should they be emailing you and calling this number?
Yeah, no, so I appreciate the kind words, Jason. Yeah, so absolutely. The key thing is that even though we are good size and we do handle, thousands and thousands of transactions a year, real estate is all we do, so some people make the mistake of using their, cousin's attorney or their uncle, who might be a great attorney, but really doesn't focus on real estate. Right. Just like, somebody called me for criminal defense matter, I would absolutely send them your way in a minute. I know, just enough to not represent somebody in court, if they're charged with a crime. So it's the same type of thing. You really want to engage a specialist. So anybody who's involved in any kind of real estate transaction, if they're selling, They can't just be buying, you know, if they're selling as well, or if they're buying, or even if they're refinancing and they need some assistance, we can help with all of those things throughout the state of Massachusetts.
Wonderful. That's great to know. And that's right. I mean, people can be very good at what they do, but you probably don't want a foot doctor operating on your heart, right? Like, it's just
exactly.
And lawyers know that, and that's why we refer things back and forth. Well, next time when there's certainly an article about the real estate transactions and unfortunately some of the frauds comes up, I hope you can come back and certainly give your comments to some of those news and breaking stuff that come up. But I really appreciate you coming on today and hope you are back soon.
Thanks a lot, Jason. Really appreciate it.